But what I want to do is like just kind of quick fire. You've got this generic, oh, I want to just create a program, generic program. I want to get a bit bigger. The diet's mainly controlling, body composition, but I want to get a little bit leaner. I want to put myself in a bit of health, or a better health position. I want to be, achieve the goals that most people want to do, right? So quick fire here. Let's assume again, first of all, goals are set. They're the kind of goals we just done. You've assessed what you want to do, the time available that you have, etc., right? But they come to you, generic program here, right? Where do we start with reps? Is there a particular rep range that we're going to say is better for strength? Is there a particular rep range that's better for hypertrophy? Is there a better range for, I don't know, endurance? What are we doing? Quick fire here.
Yeah, so with reps, generally from a strength perspective, if you're trying to work on maximal strength, you want to have exposure to the 1 to 5 rep range. Okay, probably not necessary for other goals, but 1 to 5 reps, you should get some exposure at least once per week on the exercises that you're trying to maximize strength in. And generally, again, that's going to be within that reps and reserve range of maybe 0 to 4. Typically, if I'm having someone exposed to singles, or even 1 to 3 reps, I'm not going to be going less than 2 reps from failure very often, because it's very fatiguing to do that. But you do want to be getting exposure at least once per week, if not more, to 1 to 5 reps on the exercise you're most focused on. If you're aiming at muscle building, then what you're going to do is stick mainly to maybe 6 to 20 reps most of the time. It is somewhat exercise specific in that some exercises just lend themselves for practical and sometimes anatomical or physiological reasons to different rep ranges. So for example, if you're doing a machine and it's not very well oiled and maybe it's not exactly fitting with your body, then doing that for very low reps for very heavy weight probably isn't going to feel so good. But those issues in how that machine is aligned, they kind of get washed out if you're just doing lighter weights and higher reps. So it's a bit more comfortable to do that. That's just a practical concern. But 6 to 20 reps in general is what I would do. And like from a practical perspective, what I think works really well a lot of the time is that if you take the start of your workout to be a bit more strength focused, maybe you're doing sets of 6 to 8, and then the middle of your workout, you're doing like 10 to 15. And then the end of the workout, you might finish with 15 to 20 reps. I found that to be something that, it's been carried forward through convention, and people have hypothesized that, oh, this is optimal because of these different mechanisms over time. But I think realistically, it's just pretty practical. I think that people are in a good position at the beginning of their workout to focus on heavier stuff. And by the end of the workout, maybe one of your joints has been aching a bit, or you're just not psychologically as into the workout anymore. Going for some lighter stuff and focusing on the pump or the burn tends to work pretty well. And then finally, for muscular endurance is something that is almost always trained with reference to a particular goal. Okay, so when someone says they want to improve their muscular endurance, it's often because maybe they're into cycling, or they're into maybe even jiu-jitsu or other activities where you have to hold isometric contractions, for example, for long periods of time. So for those types of goals, I actually don't just view it in terms of reps, but also in terms of time. So it might be that someone works muscular endurance even with just 10 to 20 reps, but they might do really long reps, so they might be doing 6 to 10 seconds per rep. And if you do 10 of them, you're talking up to, a minute to 2 minutes plus of work that's done. Or you could just very simply be looking at somewhere between 20 and 40 rep sets. And that's something that I do program. It's something I do myself as well. And what I would do in those cases, if you're using muscular endurance type of training, is really ask yourself, what are the muscles that I need to have great endurance in? Because for example, with jiu-jitsu, let's say, if you're grappling, it's actually more so the upper body muscles that you probably want to have the best muscle endurance in, and also maybe your core, because you need to be able to hold isometric contractions if you're holding someone, if you're gripping, etc. Whereas the legs, like maybe your adductors, but you don't really need the same level of muscle endurance for the most part anyway. So you have to consider the specific sporting activity that you're interested in. Obviously, if you're a cyclist or something like that, it's the lower body muscles that you're focused on. So I wouldn't have someone go to the gym and do, just loads of sets of 20 to 40 for the entire workout, because it's actually really difficult. It's fatiguing in a different way, but still super fatiguing and similar to the fatigue you're going to experience if you're doing like heavy powerlifting training. It's just different qualitatively, but very similar like quantitatively. And if you ask someone um, how they feel after a set of 30 on squats, if you genuinely go into failure, you're going to be feeling horrible and probably for the rest of the day. Very similar to how someone, if they work up to a true round rep max, they feel horrible. Okay, so they're both very disruptive, yes, in different ways, but both still very fatiguing. And that's why most often when we make generic recommendations, we say that most of your sets should be between the 6 and 20 repetition range. Because although you still can be absolutely fatigued from going close to failure, at the extremes, there's just some different physiological concerns that can make that a little bit more demanding overall.